This year, on board Celebrity Equinox, internationally renowned researchers, authors, channelers, mystics, starseeds, and spiritual luminaries will sail on an extraordinary voyage of transformation in this one-of-a-kind Galactic Origins cruise. Voyage into the ancient Mayan land. Explore the latest cosmic revelations. Learn about our galactic heritage. Rediscover the hidden wisdom and Earth's true history as presented by our stellar guest speakers and teachers hailed from around the world. Exclusive offerings include engaging lectures, workshops, special events, one-on-one sessions, sacred fire ceremony, live music performances, custom-tailored excursions. And if that's not enough, how about celebrating winter solstice on December the 21st, 2024 with an extraordinary world peace meditation guided by guest speakers and teachers? Secure your participation now. With limited packages available, this is your chance to embark on a once-in-a-lifetime journey of discovery and transformation unlike any other. Reserve your place today before it's too late.
Hello there, everybody. Welcome. How are you all doing today? This is Neil with Portal to Ascension, here with an impromptu experience webinar, and I'm excited for today because I'm going to bring on Laura Eisenhower in a moment. And this is a live Q&A, and I've wanted to do this with Laura for a while now. It's just come on here and do a Q&A because, as you guys probably noticed, you go to our channel, youtube.com/portal-ascension. A lot of clips there from Laura and a few and a Q&A that we did on some webinars, paid webinars back in the day that I've launched. And, you know, a lot of you have had questions in there and you've asked questions. So I figured what would be the best thing than just to actually do a webinar live where you guys ask questions. So I'd love for you guys to tune in and say hello. We're live on Instagram, we're live on Twitter, we're live on YouTube. Let's say hi. Welcome, George. Welcome, Kylie from Oregon. Say hello and let us know where you're from as well. Let's get the energy flowing for this experience today. So what you just saw was the Galactic Origins Cruise trailer. And this year, we have a few things coming up with Laura. And what you just saw there was the cruise that's going to be December 14th to the 21st. GalacticOriginsCruise.com. I'm just going to do a quick share here. Welcome, Joyce from Ohio. And GalacticOriginsCruise.com. It's our biggest production we've ever created. 4,000 plus events at Portal to Ascension. And Laura is one of the speakers there. When you sign up for this event, go ahead and put Laura's name on checkout. December 14th to 21st, right? And learn about the event. Here's the itinerary. We're going to start with day one. We're going to be traveling from Port Canaveral, Florida. Day two, we'll be at sea. Day three, we're going to go to some ancient sites in Costa Maya, Mexico. Day four, we're going to be in Belize looking at some massive sites. They're one of the largest Mayan archaeological sites. Cool thing is we're going to be having people on this tour with us, some of the speakers that are incredible alternative history researchers off the areas we're in. In the Honduras, we're going to actually connect with a local indigenous tribe there and get experience with them. Tulum, we're going to go to Cozumel, take a boat to Tulum, and not only see the beautiful, one of my favorite archaeological sites, but also we're going to get to chill out on the beach, which is probably one of the best beaches in the world that is just right across past this pyramid, this temple there. Then we come back. So some of the speakers, we got Laura, we got Jerry Sargent, we got JJ Desiree Hurtak, Debbie Solaris, Paul Williams, Vivian Shelvey, JK Ultra, Aluna, King Cash, Lori Spagna, Debbie Dashinger, Alan Steinfeld, Deborah Giusti, Tony Ghazi, Soltara, and myself. 23 plus speakers, musicians, for what's going to be just an amazing experience. So hope to see some of you guys there if you can make it out to that. And then also, go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat, guys, if you're already feeling it. And then also we're going to have a webinar coming up with Laura. Her book is just launched. So just to let you know what we've been doing today, I was just with Laura for the last hour and a half or so, and we just did 2 pre-recorded um, events where we spoke about all types of topics, from Lyra to Orion to galactic trauma to her book to truth frequency and how to activate within us. You know, the reflections, duality. We went deep on duality and polarity. That's going to be out next week. We're going to have 2 40-minute segments that's launching for you on that. And on that, the first segment is actually Laura Eisenhower's discussion about her book and what it's about. You can find her book on Amazon. And the webinar July 20th is named after her book, Awakening the Truth Frequency. Portal2Ascension.org, upcoming events. You can sign up there for her event, and we'll do like a soft book launch as well because it's named after a book, and a book just came out. So you can tune into that. So today we're going to have a Q&A with Laura. I'm going to bring it on just a second here, and just saying hi to Arcturian from Arcturus. We got Phoenix in the house. We have the first question coming in. So go ahead and bring in your questions, everybody. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring Laura on now. Go ahead and start your camera, Laura. There we go. Hey, Laura, welcome back.
Hi, Neil. Good to be here.
Good to see you. All right, so I guess let's just get into it. We have a question here from Kylie Smith. Are physical and emotional ascension symptoms, going to be included in today's topic? So why don't you speak about physical and emotional ascension symptoms?
Yeah, well, definitely ascension comes with symptoms, because assuming that these symptoms are an illness would be the inverted version of these times, right? So it's so good that you refer to these things as, ascension symptoms, because those that don't understand these concepts might confuse it for something being wrong with them that has nothing to do with ascension, that has to do with maybe I sure I have to be careful what I share here, but a lot of the fear tactics being used of why we wore these things, right? And what we have been up against as far as what we put in our bodies in the face of these things. So yes, our physical, emotional, spiritual, mental, emotional bodies are all being impacted. We're elemental beings. It's a time of purification. It's a time of purging and clearing. It's a time of really looking at our wounds. I was talking to Neil earlier about the North Node being in Aries and Chiron being in Aries. What is the North Node? Well, the North Node is representative of the growth period that we're going through as a humanity. It's a axis point of south to north, which symbolically is like the Ouroboros, the serpent biting its tail, that moves in one direction to then integrate with the opposite direction that it's coming from. And in doing that, we are on a soul level moving into this greater integration of the polarities, which moves us out of duality. But of course, we can move out of duality into unity and find ourselves back in duality as we face the next challenge, until we become masterful enough to have self-mastery or be an ascended master. So Chiron is our ego, our personality nature, our warrior spirit, all things Mars. It can be very competitive, very warlike, and aggressive. But Mars is also our willpower. It's our determination. It's our leadership. It's where we're pioneering and determined to move in a certain direction, no matter what anybody says. It's that fire and that strength. Is that Mars energy compartmentalized, though? Is it disconnected from soul? Is it disconnected from intuition? Is it an engineered persona that is responding to a command that has been placed upon it that isn't from the self? So we look at, humans and personality in this world that we're in, and there are a lot of very conditioned and socially engineered personas that aren't very authentic to what that soul might truly express. And we are in a growth period right now of looking at the wounds connected to that. If we're not aware of the wounds, we find ourselves getting injured and being unconscious to that injury until we recognize the detrimental side effects. When you see certain drugs, here are the side effects. You might get them sooner, you might get them later, you might not notice them much at all, but eventually it could lead, if you stay on this thing, into something. So same thing with belief systems. It's all about frequency. Is it supporting you in the long run or not? Well, your truth is herbs and the planetary alignments, they're all serving you to grow. and to step in the best of yourself. So those kind of symptoms don't lead to long-term detrimental effects, don't lead to, symptoms that you have to worry about. These are temporary symptoms of moving energy, clearing energy, and this and that. Whereas everything matrix is, it might appease the way you're feeling in the short term, but in the long term, it's detrimental. It's a major assimilation into something. It's a separation from the soul matrix. And I know I'm going a little bit too far with this question, but yes. So when you are free of all of that and you're just going through the growth periods and, what this particular one represents with Chiron, you're able to look at those discomforts that you would call ascension symptoms and recognize, wow, something's coming up to be healed. Something is showing itself to be released, to let go of it, to bring unconditional love into that place so that that wound can turn into wisdom and pain into purpose. And all these symptoms are something to really, honor, because that's really how we get there. And we've been taught to fear symptoms. Oh my gosh, something's wrong. Go to the doctor. And that is where they really leverage, the inverted expression of disease as something being wrong with you that is now in their hands to take your money and begin to control the trajectory of. And it's no different from any other part of our being, emotional or mental, in the same sort of capacity. If you're stressed or anxiety ridden, maybe you're blocking a download, so if you feel anxiety as an ascension symptom, give it a voice. Don't let it wreak havoc on your body. Don't think there's something wrong with you. Just know that there's a message coming in and it's time to receive it. And then we could go into the emotional as well. Depression, the heaviness of it all. Are you overly empathic and absorbing things that aren't yours? Are you giving up on yourself? Are you feeling hopelessness? Give it a voice. Allow the waters to purge. Allow the rain to fall within you, because, and I say this kind of redundantly, would we tell the cloud not to rain, to shut up? No, people are taught to be quiet, to hold it in, to shut up, right? That would make things really, difficult. So that symptom of, purging, if you've been taught to hold it back and your body starts to not feel so well, give yourself permission to release, be the elemental flow of all these different things so that, these symptoms become your friends and allies. So absolutely, and understanding your chart will help you to see where you might be struggling the most.
Beautiful. And so we had a question from Iacturian, but Kylie Smith asked another one on that. And just to finish that thought off, she's saying that it feels overwhelming with her nervous system, and you have spoke about that. You said allow the rain to fall and to feel it. So anything more on how to not be overwhelmed by the feelings?
Yeah. So the Uranus energy and the Aquarian energy is connected to the nervous system, and Pluto just moved into Aquarius. We've had Uranus and Jupiter conjunct in the sign of Taurus, which is an earth sign, has to do with self-worth. So there's a lot of deconstruction of our identities, or what we value, what we've been conditioned to consider to be abundance, like paychecks, what we need to do to make money, how we should look and appear, all these things that we get patted on the back by in society, like, oh, this will make you feel good. This is what abundance is. This is what success looks like. Well, Uranus and Jupiter teaming up have created this kind of breakthrough of all of that. Like that's just really not where it's at. We have to redefine it on our own terms, because Uranus is the wrecking ball. It's the Tower card in the tarot. And what it wants is the truth to emerge. And when that happens, what we see is, wow, what do I value? Community, unity consciousness, trust in ourselves, and synchronicities and divine flow and magic. That's not what we're taught, right? So that deconstruction can cause a lot of anxiety, but that's just where the planets are. If I looked at your own personal chart, it'd be a lot easier, but very often anxiety and nervous system issues are like, the electrical system being in overload. If there's traumas that you haven't really processed, then when certain things come in, it might sort of trigger a reaction, and that's where the purging needs to happen. And when I said rain, let it flow. Like if you need to cry, if you need to say something, if a message is coming through that you need to write down, you want to move the body as much as possible. That nervous system is just needing as much movement and as expression as possible. You want to treat it with, very calming herbs like chamomile. There's something called apigenin, which is an extraction from chamomile that absolutely like calms the nervous system, and work with like plant medicines to really help that part of you, because your nervous system is what helps to like integrate the downloads and what's coming in from your higher mind. If there's anxiety, it means that there's a lot of heavy density or a lot of energy stored in your being that is having a hard time fully bringing it in. You might have been taught to shut down your light. You might have dealt with traumas that dimmed your light, that talked you out of some things about yourself or undermined it, or, you know, so in this time of acceleration and activation, it might be too much to just feel into that lightness and into that joy and into that authentic truth that you're made of. So it's very important that you have a boundary to the things that cause you nervous system distress, that you get plenty of rest, that you just feel empowered in saying no, and begin to really evaluate your relationships, your job, your lifestyle, to make sure that you're giving yourself exactly what you need to produce calmness, relaxation, and self-love and nurturing. You're muted.
Arcturian is asking, why do we have to work so hard to activate our pineal gland? Why can't it be activated once we're aware we have access to it?
Well, I think that's, you know, part of it. But I mean, it's a very targeted part of who we are. So there are ways to open all this up. I mean, like literally, you know, herbs and crystals, like herbs literally hold all that we could possibly need in order to get this going again and get this working for us again. The calcification of the pineal gland, you know, or the feeling of like working hard, you know, at something is like, well, when you're in a place that doesn't allow its expression, whether it's clear or not, it's just going to make it difficult. So you just have to give yourself the space and time to just, you know, activate it. I'm not sure like what's going on with you specifically, but we could talk about herbs for pineal gland. Some of the adaptogen herbs are really good. And, you know, so you want to take the workload off, because working for something, it's like, it's just, I'm not quite sure what that feels like lots of meditation, lots of, you know, I'm not sure what you're personally, you know, dealing with, but a lot of the medicinal mushrooms help with pineal gland. Blue lotus, you know, also assists. I did a lot of blue lotus tea and adaptogen herbs, and I was starting to have unbelievable visions and visitations that literally like had me crying. Like I just couldn't believe it. And I'm like, what did I do? I'm like, is this tea really doing this? You know, third eye opening. Anima Mundi herbals, I got to tell you, a lot of their lucid dream tea, you know, it's just like, boom, it just like really clears out that space, and you don't have to work so hard. So yeah, just really explore that. And that's the best answer I can give for right now. Oh, you're muted again.
Sorry. This one's come up a lot in the past. What's any information on RH negative bloodline into our galactic history?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of information about that. They say that RH negative are easier to abduct, that have more ET genetics related to it. There's so many different things I could share about it, but they're not all in agreement with each other. But how I look at it is the electric and magnetic, right? You see the positive and the negative, right? So if you say something is negative or positive, we're really looking for the positive and the negative to come together, but we have a dominant expression. Even the astro signs have either a masculine or a feminine energy. Doesn't mean it has anything to do with gender, but it has a positive or a negative. The electric magnetic energies of the planetary grid network do as well. And I feel that, you know, in coming into balance, we will begin to, you know, have both the positive and the negative. But until then, we have a particular affinity towards one or the other. And based in that, they determine this within us to know how they can maybe use us. So the RH negative and RH positive, there are books written about it. There's so much information written about it. There's a lot of significance to it. You got the AB, you got the O. And this relates to different ET genetics, right? But when we look at the 12-strand DNA and the ET genetics that we hold, we're in a limited expression here. So based in, our energy signature or past lives or, what we have an affinity towards, I feel that eventually our blood is going to shift and change, and it's not just limited to what we were born with. That's just a really tough one to answer because there's just so much information about it. But yeah, that's just what I'll share for now.
Mhm. Okay. Just to let everybody know as well, there was an article on Metro, like a mainstream article came out yesterday that says there's an ongoing conspiracy theory that based on people's bloodlines, they might be alien. A mainstream article that just came out like yesterday about
mainstream
bloodline. They're not going deep in the bloodlines. They're a mainstream article, and they're just basically like they're picking up on this conspiracy that's been around for decades, but now because ETs are becoming so mainstream, they've just put an article out saying a lot of people who are specific bloodline think they're alien. So that's very interesting to know.
Right.
All right, we have Suzy Sutherland here. Is there some kind of frequency tech barrier between regular government, police, security people, and these programs you speak of about?
I missed that first part. Say that again.
Is there some kind of frequency or barrier between regular government, so the regular conventional what we see, government, police, and security, and then the programs, the deep underlying programs, secret space program and beyond?
I don't quite know what you mean, but if you're talking like compartmentalization or just
yeah, I guess she's probably saying, is there some kind of like thing where they're not able to see and perceive this deeper underlying thing that's going on, and they're kind of completely ignorant of this because there's a frequency or something that's inhibiting them from being able to perceive it. That's what I think is being asked there.
In the government?
Yeah, I'm not sure we can really tell.
I think it depends like who you are within all of that. I mean, there are a lot of people that, this is the compartmentalization. Behind this door, this might be going on, and you might not even know that it exists or that it's going on. And then over here, it's just there's certain bloodlines, that traffic their children, that put them in the secret space programs, that are part of the pedophilia rings, just the grooming and the MK Ultra stuff. And then others that absolutely would be horrified to even think that could possibly exist, that, are just not kept in the know about it. When we see like the Epstein thing come to light, there's definitely, those that were involved, that hold positions in our society, that are politicians or in the entertainment industry or, philanthropists or whatever, that are out there. And, they know things that other people that might have been invited to a party and had their picture taken don't know at all. And so people are trying to figure out who is who. Okay, well, what's on the list here and there, so it really depends. It's sort of like everybody in Hollywood, are they all compromised? Of course not. But there is enough in there that know about things that others might not know about. But everybody that's in there is vulnerable of getting recruited in or being blackmailed or being compromised. So you're like literally in a pool, an ocean of sharks that are circling you because you're bait now once you enter that arena. And once you know, but like once you're also compromised and blackmailed to not expose what you know, and you end up compromising your integrity one time, and that might be enough to yank you into something very, very difficult to unwind from. Now, if you're born into it and you're being groomed or you've got altars and this and that, you don't really know until you begin to recall your memories and understand the roots of what you went through and what became the person that you think you are, that you don't realize you are not because you're running an altar. I mean, it's just like, it's such a mixed bag. Like, on to the next part of all that. I could keep going, but that's just a taste.
Yeah. So Joyce is asking, how does Chiron affect us? And her Chiron is in Aries.
What's that?
Joyce is asking, how does Chiron affect us? And she said her Chiron is in Aries.
So Chiron is in Aries. So you're having your Chiron returns. My Chiron is in Aries too. So Chiron is the wounded healer. It's where we feel pain, and that pain doesn't have to just continue to hurt us. It wants our attention. Anything that hurts wants to be heard, wants to be loved, right? So when we look at it, we can just, find that place of vulnerability, that place where we get triggered, that place where, it's an unresolved like wound. So the Chiron Aries tend to have self-esteem issues. They tend to have wounded egos, or they tend to be, healers that, want to assist others, that have a motivation and a willpower to, help people out of difficult situations, that are sharing what they might have gone through. If because there's different levels of it. And once you get to the level of where that injury turns into a scar that you can reflect upon and remember, but it doesn't hurt you anymore, it doesn't keep getting opened back up every time it gets hit, then it's like, wow, okay, I can see that. And now, those that I see that are getting injured in a similar way, here's a way to, work with that. Here's great medicine that you can, put here. Here's the unconditional love of the ether energy that is connected to Ophiuchus and the Divine Mother. Ophiuchus is ruled by Chiron, believe it or not. So Chiron is coming to the surface right now in the sign of Aries, connected to the North Node in Aries, because, wow, we have to like look at our wounds, be transparent enough with them to allow the purification and the nurturing aspects of the unconditional love of source to bring those wounds into a higher awareness. And without that, how can we possibly awaken? We were born into a gaping wound. We were born into a planetary system that has been harmed and injured. Mother Earth herself is wounded. And so we all carry pieces of the greater collective wound. And in looking at that, we are doing our purpose. So our wound and our pain becomes our purpose, because we're all tasked with healing something in the collective that we were born into. It's not just the parents and the ancestral patterns connected to that. It's also how that micro story relates to the macro. And it's through, loving our wounds, understanding our wounds, that we will embrace the greater calling. But for the Aries, it is very much, did your ego or persona get injured and harmed? Because the ego is not the bad guy. People are sometimes like, no, let go of the ego. Yeah, let go of the ego attachments to matrix programs and conditionings and personas that are engineered and cast upon you. But let your ego be a space in which your soul can express itself through. A place where you can identify with your spiritual nature and the truth of all that you are, so that your ego persona can stand strong as that spirit warrior and have that willpower and leadership to carry forward in a much more integrated way. What are the wounds that made that difficult for you to hold in your life? Those are things to maybe look at.
Mm-hmm. For everybody tuning in, on July 20th, we're going to be doing a webinar, Awakening the Truth Frequency webinar, also named after Laura's book. The new book is out, Amazon.com. You can just Google Awakening the Truth Frequency book, Laura Eisenhower, on any search engine. You'll find the book. You can get that there. And then also the webinar, July 20th, portaltoascension.org, upcoming events. And you can sign up there for that. So we have a question here from Actors Podcast. He's asking, I've never heard you speak on this, but he's asking about solfeggio and if there's dangers within it. And there is a back and forth in the conscious community, I guess, in regards to that. Do you have any information on specific harmonic frequencies and solfeggios?
Yeah. There's a lot about the closed kind of system, and then, this even flower of life and the Fibonacci's. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in it, but everything, even like the ether, dodecahedron, platonic solid, has been put in reversals. The tree of life, if you look at some of the grids or the template of it, has 10 spheres. It's supposed to have 12. So, there's possibly something in that, but I really feel the consciousness is much more powerful than something being a detriment. Where is that symbol holding an energetic intention that is nefarious or negative? Or is that individual that is connecting into that frequency vulnerable to, something coming in? I mean, it's just like, I just don't like even negative symbols. It can't really harm you. It's like you can have neutrality and understand it. Like the pentagram upside down should be right side up, but it's just more symbolic of, what we're dealing with. You know how they say the symbols will be their downfall. Well, when we see the symbols or experience the subliminals, are we that susceptible? Well, some people are. we can have immunities to things that other people don't. So the manipulation of things that involve frequency is manipulating aspects of nature, because we see, these same patternings in nature. But the dodecahedron, which is a part of the platonic solids of nature that create these sort of formations, have been manipulated. And the forms that they might create, or the frequencies that come through, might, keep that that feedback loop going, instead of that open, sort of tri-wave, instead of bi-wave, which is more what we want for the greater circulation of energy. I'm not an expert so much, but there have been manipulations. But again, I think you would have to be susceptible to, frequencies, to distortions, and these kind of subtleties to be impacted. But if you're not susceptible and you're immune, I think you can offset some of these manipulations and override it, because we are the more advanced technology over all manipulation.
Mm-hmm. So everybody, we'll take 2 more questions from the live audience. So bring them in if you would like to ask a question. Only 2 more, and I'll ask one here. On our pre-records, and again, to who's just joining in now, Laura and I just pre-recorded 2 40-minute segments right before we went live here. That's going to launch next week, and that's really amazing stuff there. So tune into that. Go ahead and subscribe on the channel if you want to get notifications about it. And so I'd like to, you mentioned the Lyran Wars that came down into the Orion Wars. I would love for you to explain that a little more. What happened in the Lyra, and how is that connected to Orion? What went down over there?
Well, just to summarize, because it's so much more enormous than anything that I could share. And, it's not like I was just there yesterday, or any of us were, right? I mean, but we're still living it to a certain degree, and we're a part of that greater repair work. Lyra was attacked by reptilians. And if we look at this as a free will experience, okay, well, this is when our avatar consciousness began to step down. So if there was, this sort of invasion taking place, and this battle between service to self, service to others, fallen groups that were wanting to take out or compromise the higher beings that were seated, that were vulnerable when they were born to these nefarious forces and the rebellions and all this kind of stuff. This all is connected. So you hear many, many stories and myths and creation stories and galactic history that are talking about very similar things, but with different terminology, right? But the most important piece of all of it is to understand the breakdown of our connection with the full embodiment of our 12-strand and beyond DNA, our connection to the 0-point unified field and the cosmic trinity, the founder races that seeded us in Lyra, and how there was a war that began to cause us to step down and move on to new scenarios and ways to counteract it, and a formation of opposition in this kind of duality of service to self and service to others. Stepping down into the Orion Wars, that Orion gateway that was connecting into the galactic cores of Andromeda and the Milky Way, began to get closed off. So that access to that regenerative energy and that natural connection with source energy was now being hybridized, manipulated, and thrown into this kind of battle. The Orion Wars that had the Black League resistance, and then the Kamaras, the Blue Dragons, and beings from Venus, and all these different scenarios that were taking place that we see in certain movies. People bring up Star Wars, the Jedis, to we see the polarization of light versus dark. Now stepping down here, and how these galactic wars have followed us here with the exploded planet of Tiamat and also Maldek, and this very, very scrambled DNA coding of the sacred union template of the divine blueprint of the Christ Sophia. We are literally healing these wars within ourselves, because it's a war on consciousness. It's spiritual warfare. People have memories of all of this, and it's playing out on the world stage in so many ways. But really, it's the breakdown of our full capacity to hold this DNA embodiment. And regardless of what we're able to hold in the physical, Neil and I were talking about this earlier, it's what our consciousness can reach. And if our consciousness can consistently reach these higher levels of the repair work of moving out of that duality into unity to reach these higher levels back into the cosmic trinity and the 0-point unified field, we, in a sense, through going through experience in our life and in our physical world and in the people that we meet and the things that we confront in this awakening process, begin to heal these galactic wars from within. As we retrieve memories, as we reface certain patternings within ourselves, we find that sovereignty again over the forces that have tried to separate us from our true connection, that have intercepted our crown chakra into a belief system, into an ideology, into a religion, or a hybridization expression that has tricked it out of itself, which is what is really, really amped up right now. And that's kind of where it all began. So when we look at like the grays and we look at, just how a human can be bioengineered into something that doesn't even have the capacity to reproduce, that's very much also seeing the war on our souls and separating us from the soul matrix. And seeing what happened in Orion is also what we can learn from in the here and now as far as what they're attempting to do. We're almost reliving some of these wars in order to gain full mastery. And once we do that, I don't think we're going to face the wars in the way that we did before. Because just as we know, when we learn a lesson or we break a certain patterning, you begin to not find yourself revisiting and looping back into it. So I think, we're facing a lot of these galactic wars in the here and now, coming in a different form and expression, to not end up being the same sort of result that happened then. A lot of other star systems had beings that, like Apex, had beings that became assimilated into a hive mind with AI, that are kind of warning us and telling us what happened to them. So, what is in our ancient history is also very present in the here and now, because the same mechanisms are being used to compromise a human advancing or coming into polarity integration. The Orion Wars were the greatest time of polarization that we are repairing in this human experience, which is the purpose of us being here.
Yes. Do you know what the story of the origin of the 12-strand DNA is from? Where is that component from?
I don't know about like the story, but it's just like that's the tree of life blueprint, right? So the true planetary grid network is the tree of life. The tree of death, the artificial tree of death, is an overlay planetary grid network that has been installed in sacred sites and creating, reversals in order to harvest and siphon our energy. And that's what feeds these parasitic forces. So the 12 strand, we're not expressing to the fullness at all. We're like in 3 strand, right? And that is the 3D. When people say we're in 3D, yeah, because that's all we can occupy at this time. So when we move beyond the personality matrix and we're soul centered, we're actually more in 5D than we realize. Everybody's waiting for 5D ascension, but you're already in 5D when you're soul centered. We can carry 5D and beyond and still be in what surrounds us as what's seeming to be or looking like a 3D thing. That you're in a higher dimensional energy when you're hanging around somebody who's just absorbed into the television, that believes in everything they hear in the news. That's very much the programming of a 3D world. The upgraded DNA, is a part of moving from personality matrix to soul matrix to monad to avatar to guardian founder races to the unified field of source. That is the template of the tree of life. It has a root system and it has branches. The tree of knowledge is the duality of experiencing good and evil to then gain self-knowledge to begin to recover ourselves from the manipulation of the planetary grids, where we're being tempted to be sucked into the inversions, the addiction matrix, the materialism, the belief systems that conquer and divide us, the battle of light and dark and good and evil that was originated in the Orion War starting in Lyra. So the tree of knowledge is self-knowledge. Okay, we're going to have this experience and then gain self-knowledge. And in gaining self-knowledge that's been targeted with mind control, so we got to deprogram, we will rebuild that DNA template. And in doing that, we participate in helping to heal the planetary grids. And a lot of grid workers have come to specifically work those energies. And so when we rebuild it and begin to shed light on what has been dormant, we begin to breathe life into these aspects of ourselves that are incredibly creative. So these reversal technologies harvest and siphon our creative imagination, our life force, and everything in order to use that which we have disconnected from. And then we look outside of ourselves for what they decided to do with that energy. And we're actually consenting to using our energy in a dark way that ends up enabling a timeline that we don't want. But we don't realize that we've given that away for it to be used and manipulated and brought back to us as like, see the reality you guys have created because you believed in this. And me and Neil were talking, we're comparing it to a relationship. If you're in a relationship that's abusive, you're going down a trajectory with that person where your self-worth is literally nothing, but you think that person loves you. You haven't had a chance to really awaken to who you are. And a lot of people that are in that situation say, I didn't know myself. I didn't go through enough experience. I was just vulnerable. You know, I was just still recovering from my childhood and I was taken advantage of, right? Well, here we are born with amnesia, the same thing, you know, this abusive system that disguises itself as loving us, that cares about us, that we don't realize is abusing us until we see the symptoms, we see the impact that it's having on every aspect of our being. So when we let go of that, when we cut the cords with it, the natural process of reawakening these dormant strands begins to come to light. So the story of it is that this is what we've been given. This is our natural inheritance. This is our divine blueprint. Everything that's distracted us away, that has blocked us from accessing it, that has talked us out of it, that has distracted us away, that has caused us to form a dependency bond from the addiction matrix of the personality into something outside of ourselves, is what's using that dormant energy as a way to generate false realities that humans mistake for just the world that we're in. And to get all that back is to begin to open up our consciousness to the full capacity of that 12-strand DNA. And in understanding our chart, the 12 signs, which are a part of the 12-strand DNA, and the 13th sign, we begin to understand the map of our zodiac blueprint that we've been given to understand the patternings to get us back into that 0 point. And to me, every chart is a treasure map that is different than the other. Like a snowflake, we're all unique, but it's all guiding us back into that 0 point. And in coming together in unity consciousness, we help to light up the places that aren't lit up in our own chart. If you don't have any planets in, 3 of the houses, you might attract somebody that does, right? We're here to build the pieces back together to rebuild the template of the tree of life. And that's why there are 7 root races and 5 cloister races, that we would need to come together to switch each other on, that we would each carry something important, that we wouldn't be able to carry in third density without it being too much for our physical body, that we would be able to pull the pieces together and then begin to move into a different expression, that we would be able to inhabit more of all of that. Right now, we are fragments and fractals that are carrying different pieces that we're being tasked with. And in coming together, it'll rebuild that template within ourselves until, we're able to hold it in consistency within ourselves without needing one another. And that is when we gain wholeness and sovereignty and ascended mastery, is my take.
Wow. Just a comment on that, and then I'm going to ask one final question and we'll close out. Like we're getting the fractals and the fragmentations that we experience, and then we have obviously soul retrieval. And in essence, we're bringing back parts of our souls. And through trauma in this life, I had a lot of trauma as a child. Parts of me checked out of this reality, and I've been calling them in. And then if you think about the galactic trauma and what we've experienced galactically, we're calling that in. So could we be a microcosm of the macro, where all of us are the soul fragments of the collective spirit of Earth? And it's like we're basically Earth, or our solar system is also experiencing soul retrieval, and each one of us are a fractal of that original soul, and we're just coming back to one. And maybe it keeps going up higher and higher on that level until we eventually become back to source again, one with source.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. So it's like, if you look at a box with a picture on it and all the puzzle pieces, it's like right now it's like, okay, here's the picture of, what it means to be,